My name is Clara Thompson. I am 18 years old and I live in Brighton, a city known for its lively spirit and vibrant youth culture. I'm just starting my journey into adulthood, a world filled with hope, excitement, and yes, some heavy disappointments. As I stepped into college, I had dreams of making lifelong friends, learning new things, and maybe even finding someone special. Unfortunately, my college experience began to take a dark turn with the entrance of a guy named George. He was 20 years old and seemed charming at first, like someone straight out of a romantic movie. I found myself developing a crush on him, and to my surprise, he showed interest in me too. He even set a countdown to my 18th birthday. At that time, I thought, how sweet, how romantic, but little did I know this would soon lead to my heart shattering into a million pieces. Just 2 days before I turned 18, George ghosted me, suddenly and cruelly tossing me aside like I was nothing. His excuse was ridiculous. He said I reminded him of his ex, which felt incredibly unfair. I was crushed and I confided in my friends, hoping for comfort, but instead I was met with disapproval for gossiping about him. I felt isolated and alone. They did not understand. I was still polite and kind to him when I saw him in the halls, trying to act normal, but inside I was a storm of emotions. One day, while I was hanging out with my friend Mia, I stumbled into a revelation that shook my world even further. Mia had received a particularly ugly voice message from George. It was a long, disturbing audio recording where he objectified me in the most degrading way imaginable. He casually referred to some violent, sexual fantasies about me, saying things like I should be pinned against a wall. To add to that sickening realization, he called me immature and a brat, which I thought was ludicrous coming from someone who seemed to care more about video games than actual conversations. My heart raced with anger, both for myself and for anyone who had faced something similar. It was just too much. I could not stand it. I decided then and there that enough was enough. I showed Mia's voice note to several people in my class. The reactions were immediate and explosive. They were disgusted, outraged that a person like George would dare to say those things about someone. Friends who once found George appealing began to turn their backs on him. It felt empowering to see others realize his true character, and for a brief moment I thought I could finally move on, but George was not ready to let this go. He began to panic as everyone around him started to act differently. Mia confronted him, revealing what he had said and how his messages had gotten out. He crumpled under the weight of his actions, crying and lashing out at everyone except himself. He was losing friends, losing respect, and for a fleeting moment I felt a small sense of victory. Yet I knew this problem was far from solved. In our efforts to stand up against him, I had unwittingly made him a martyr in the eyes of some. Despite my initial triumph, a feeling of dissatisfaction crept into my mind. I needed more than just to ruin George's reputation. I wanted him to feel the same fear and helplessness I felt when he mistreated me. I wanted him to know that there would be consequences. So I devised a plan that would forever etch his misdeeds into the minds of his followers. I created a fake account on Instagram, carefully crafting it to look like a girl from another college. I scoured through George's followers and added them all into a group chat. With some hesitation, my heart pounding in my chest, I posted everything he had said about me, the sexual fantasies, the insults, everything. My hands shook as I pressed send, knowing the chaos that would ensue but feeling a rush of adrenaline. It was an exhilarating sense of justice. As news spread rapidly, George went from having friends to being a social pariah almost overnight. His reactions were just as I envisioned: panic, anger, and desperation. Word quickly spread through the school, and it felt like I had thrown gasoline on a fire. The consequences were poetic. George found himself utterly alone, a social outcast, abandoned by the very friends who once idolized him. The thrill of victory surged within me. I felt liberated. Finally, I had taken control of the narrative. I went to class every day with my head held high, knowing I had stood up for myself. I may have felt guilt and anxiety about my choice, but I also realized that my actions were a means of protection. As time passed after that incident, I learned a lot about courage, resilience, and the impact our actions can have on others. I might have started my college journey with heartbreak, but it also led to an awakening. My new normal became one of self-respect and confidence. I surrounded myself with a circle of true friends who lifted me up rather than weigh me down. And as for George, I never saw him again, which felt like a blessing. Leaving him behind allowed me to embrace a future filled with possibilities rather than the painful reminders of my past. Life had a way of turning the tables, and in my heart, I felt ready for whatever it had in store for me next. I had discovered the strength in vulnerability, the power in truth, and most importantly, I had learned that standing up for myself did not just set me free, it also set a standard for how I expected to be treated moving forward.